All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of emotional intelligence.
Oh, I love this topic.
Me too. And we're taking our cues from who else? The guru himself, Daniel Goleman, and his book, Emotional
A
Intelligence.
classic.
It really is. We'll be focusing on part 3, where Goleman digs deep into how those emotional patterns we pick up as kids can stick with us throughout life.
It's amazing how those early experiences shape who we become.
Seriously.
Right.
Like, one thing that really blew my mind was this idea that even if a kid only had, like, mild depression when they were little, it could actually make them way more likely to have serious depression later on.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
Totally. I always thought kids just, grew out of that kind of stuff.
Not necessarily. Goldman's research is really clear on that point. Those early emotional experiences can literally leave a mark on our brains.
Whoa, heavy stuff. So before we get too deep, let's back up for a sec.
Sure.
What exactly are we talking about when we say emotional intelligence? What does it even mean?
Well, think of it like this. It's basically a set of skills that helps us understand and manage our own emotions.
Makes sense.
But it's also about being able to recognize and respond to other people's emotions, too.
Okay, so like empathy.
Exactly. It's about being self-aware, being empathetic, and basically knowing how to navigate all those tricky social situations.
Gotcha. So how does this all play out in childhood then? Goleman mentions these two classic examples, Jimmy the bully and those kids who are like constantly on edge and seeing threats everywhere.
Right, those are great examples. So with Jimmy, the classic aggressor, you often see this pattern where their emotional needs weren't met consistently as kids.
Oh, interesting.
Goldman argues that a chaotic home life, where maybe there's neglect or really harsh punishments, can actually create the perfect environment for aggression to flourish.
So it's not just about a kid being bad.
Right, exactly. There's often a deeper emotional root cause.
I see.
And then you have those kids who are always on high alert, like you said, they're always seeing threats, even when there aren't any.
Like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And a lot of times this comes from early experiences where they felt unsafe or misunderstood.
Oh, wow. I can see how that would be so damaging.
It can be. And the really worrying part is that these early patterns of behavior can have long-term consequences.
You mean like affect them as adults?
Absolutely. Goldman's research actually suggests that kids who have trouble managing their emotions are at a higher risk for all sorts of problems later on. They're more likely to struggle in school, have trouble making friends, and even have run-ins with the law.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like those early emotional wounds create this vulnerability that makes it harder for them to succeed in life.
That ties in perfectly with what Gurman says about the rise of depression in kids and teens these days.
Oh, absolutely. He calls it a modern epidemic.
Yeah, and I've definitely noticed it, even just anecdotally. But what's driving this trend?
Well, Goldman points to a pretty significant societal shift that happened after World War II, the move toward dual income families.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's not saying that working parents are the problem.
Right. Of course not.
But he does argue that this shift, even though it was positive in a lot of ways, might have created situations where kids' emotional needs weren't always being met consistently.
So, like, they're not getting enough emotional support.
That's the idea. And this, combined with all the other pressures kids face these days, can create a perfect storm for some of them, especially those who are already prone to depression.
So it's not just about kids being moody teenagers.
Exactly.
There could be something much deeper going on.
There could be. And here's the really crazy part. Those early emotional stressors, they can actually affect the way a kid's brain develops.
Really?
Yep. And that can make them more susceptible to depression even decades later. It's like these early experiences create a blueprint that influences their emotional well-being for their whole life.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
It is, and we're just scratching the surface here. These emotional intelligence deficits, they don't just contribute to depression. They can play a role in all sorts of issues, like eating disorders, for example.
Oh, right. He talks about how kids who can't really tell the difference between anxiety, anger, and actual hunger are more likely to develop disordered eating.
Yeah. It's like their internal compass is all messed up and they don't know how to interpret those signals.
And then, of course, you have all the societal pressure about body image.
Oh, absolutely. That adds a whole other layer of complexity.
It's almost like some kids are looking for a way to control something in their lives when their emotions feel totally out of control.
That's a really insightful observation.
Mm.
And then, we have the issue of social rejection. Kids who have trouble regulating their emotions and understanding social cues, they often end up being outcasts.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen.
And it creates this vicious cycle, right? They
Yeah.
don't have the skills to navigate social situations effectively, so they get rejected, and then they miss out on those crucial opportunities to build the skills they need.
It's like they're stuck in a rut.
Exactly. And that's why these early interventions are so important. We need to give kids the tools they need to break free from those negative patterns.
Speaking of patterns, Goleman also talks about those two emotional pathways to substance abuse, anxiety, and impulsivity.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating discussion.
He basically says that for some people, alcohol becomes a way to numb those uncomfortable feelings of anxiety.
Right, it's like self-medication.
And for others, it's all about that rush, that escape from boredom.
Exactly. And both of those pathways really highlight how important emotional regulation is when it comes to preventing substance abuse.
So is he saying that all anxious or impulsive kids are destined to become alcoholics? I mean, that seems a bit extreme.
No, no, not at all. He acknowledges that there might be a biological predisposition in some cases.
Like a genetic factor.
Exactly. But he really emphasizes that learning how to manage those underlying emotions can make a huge difference.
So even if there's a genetic component, developing those emotional intelligence skills can be a powerful protective factor.
Exactly. It's like building up resilience to help you weather those emotional storms.
I love that analogy. And, it's not just about dealing with problems after they happen. Goleman really stresses the importance of prevention, especially when it comes to something as serious as child sexual abuse.
Yeah, that's a critical point. And he's actually pretty critical of those basic good touch, bad touch programs.
Yeah, I remember those.
He argues that they're just not very effective in actually empowering kids to protect themselves.
So it's not enough to just tell kids what's right and wrong.
Right, exactly. They need more than that.
They need the emotional intelligence to actually apply that knowledge in real-life situations.
Absolutely. They need to be able to recognize and manage their own emotions, read social cues accurately, and assert their boundaries effectively. And that's where these emotional literacy programs come in.
Oh, right. He talks about those as a way to proactively foster emotional intelligence in kids.
Exactly. It's all about giving them the skills they need to thrive emotionally and socially.
And he shares some really interesting examples of how these programs work in practice, right?
Oh, yeah. Like that anecdote from the self-science program at the Nova Learning Center.
I loved that one, especially that game, Cooperation Squares.
Yes. It's amazing how such a simple activity can teach kids so much about teamwork, communication, and even conflict resolution.
And that story about Raymond and Tugger arguing over the rules.
Oh, yeah. That one was classic.
It perfectly illustrates how these programs can help kids work through conflict in a healthy way.
Absolutely. It's not about suppressing emotions, but rather about teaching kids how to channel them constructively.
It's like giving them a roadmap for navigating those inevitable conflicts that come up in any social setting.
Right. And another interesting technique they use in that program is a numerical scale to gauge how the students are feeling.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's like giving them a language to express their inner world without feeling judged.
Exactly. It creates a safe space for them to explore and understand their emotions.
Which reminds me of that other point Goleman makes about integrating emotional literacy into the regular school curriculum.
Yes. Like the child development project he mentions.
It's about weaving those essential life lessons into everyday learning experiences.
Exactly. It's not about creating separate emotional literacy classes, but rather about making it part of everything they learn.
And I love that stoplight method he talks about for impulse control.
Oh, yeah. That's a great one.
It's so simple, but so effective. Red light, stop and think before you act. Yellow light, talk about the problem and brainstorm solutions. Green light, try the best plan.
It's brilliant. It teaches kids how to pause and regulate their impulses before they react.
Which is a key skill for emotional intelligence, right?
Absolutely. Self-regulation is fundamental.
And then Goleman takes us from individual self-control to a school-wide level with the Resolving Conflict Creatively program.
Oh, yes. That program has been incredibly successful in reducing school violence.
It's amazing how they use peer mediation and conflict resolution training to create a more peaceful environment.
It really shows that emotional literacy isn't just about individual well-being.
It has ripple effects throughout the whole community.
Absolutely. It's about empowering kids to create a more harmonious world for everyone.
And that brings us to the benefits and long-term impact of these programs, which, it's a whole other can of worms. We'll have to dive into that another time.
Definitely a topic for another deep dive.
For sure. But for now, we'll leave you with that food for thought. The power of emotional intelligence, starting right from childhood.
It's truly fascinating stuff.
It is. And so crucial for building a brighter future.
Couldn't agree more.
So we just explored some amazing real-world examples of how these emotional literacy programs can really help kids, navigate all those tricky social
It's
situations.
inspiring stuff.
It is, but it also kind of makes you wonder, like, if these programs are so effective, why aren't we seeing them everywhere?
That's the million-dollar question.
Seriously. Shouldn't they be like a fundamental part of every kid's education?
You'd think so, right? I mean, the evidence is pretty clear.
Right. So what's the holdup? Why aren't these programs the norm?
Well, there are a few roadblocks. Resources are a big one. To really implement these programs properly, you need funding, you need teacher training, and you need ongoing support.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And unfortunately, our education system is often stretched thin. They're so focused on standardized testing and all that,
Right.
that it can be tough to prioritize these quote-unquote soft skills.
It's like we're so obsessed with measuring academic intelligence that we forget about nurturing emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it's like we want kids to succeed in life, but are we actually giving them the tools to handle all the emotional ups and downs that come with it?
Exactly. It's like sending them out into the world without a map or a compass.
Perfect analogy. And it's not just about schools either.
Right. Goleman talks about that.
Yeah, he emphasizes that emotional literacy isn't just the responsibility of schools.
It takes a village.
Exactly. It requires a team effort, involving parents, communities, everyone. He even suggests that, maybe we should offer classes for parents to help them understand and manage their own emotions.
Oh, that's interesting because, how can we expect parents to guide their kids if they're struggling with their own emotional stuff, right?
It's true. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really about creating this whole ecosystem of emotional literacy at school, at home, in the community.
It really does take a village.
It does. And Goleman also talks about the importance of creating a supportive and caring school culture.
Oh, yeah, those are the best.
Right. Like you walk into those schools and you can just feel the positive energy.
Totally. It's like everyone feels like they belong, and there's this sense of, mutual respect and understanding.
It's palpable.
Yeah.
And I bet those schools have way fewer disciplinary problems.
You're absolutely right. Goleman actually cites studies showing that schools with these kinds of supportive environments have way fewer suspensions and expulsions.
Makes sense, right? If kids feel heard and understood, they're less likely to act out.
Exactly. And it's not about eliminating conflict altogether.
Because let's face it, conflict is inevitable.
Right. It's about giving kids the tools to handle those conflicts in a healthy and productive way.
And here's the kicker. Goleman found that these programs actually boosted academic achievement.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Wait, so focusing on feelings and relationships actually helps kids perform better academically?
It might sound counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you think about it.
I guess so.
If a kid can manage their anxiety, focus their attention, and control their impulses, they're going to be in a much better position to learn, right?
Right, it's like removing all those emotional roadblocks that get in the way.
Exactly. And these benefits, they go way beyond the classroom, too. Goleman talks about how emotional intelligence is crucial for building healthy relationships, navigating the workplace, basically leading a fulfilling life.
He calls it an inoculation for life.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like giving them a superpower to navigate the ups and downs of being human.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he connects emotional intelligence to character development too, right?
Huh. Oh, absolutely. He talks about qualities like self-discipline, empathy, compassion. These are the building blocks of a more just and equitable society.
It's not just about individual success then.
No, it's about fostering a world where people can connect, collaborate, and contribute in meaningful ways.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is. But it begs the question, if we're not intentionally teaching these essential life skills in schools, where are kids supposed to learn them?
Right. Are we just leaving it up to chance?
For a lot of kids, unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening.
And that's not fair.
It's not.
Not good.
Some kids are lucky enough to have families and communities that prioritize emotional intelligence, but many aren't.
And that's where these emotional literacy programs can really make a difference, right?
Exactly. They can fill those gaps and level the playing field.
It's about making sure every kid, no matter their background, has the chance to develop their full emotional potential.
That's the goal. To empower them to become resilient, empathetic, self-aware individuals, ready to face whatever life throws at them.
And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, let's talk about what we can do to make that vision a reality. How we can advocate for this vital aspect of education.
That's the next step, taking action.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, huh?
We did.
I mean, from those classic examples of kids struggling with, their emotions to like the bigger societal changes that might be contributed to this whole modern epidemic of depression Goleman talks about.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. But, it's also kind of empowering to think that we're not just stuck with those emotional patterns we developed as kids.
Yeah, that's one of the most hopeful things about Goleman's work. Emotional intelligence isn't fixed. We can actually learn and develop those skills throughout our lives.
Phew, that's good to hear.
It's never too late to work on becoming more emotionally intelligent.
That's a relief because, I'll be honest, I've had my own struggles with emotional regulation, especially when it comes to stress.
Oh, we all do.
Right. But knowing that it's possible to develop these skills gives me hope, not just for myself, but for everyone.
It's powerful stuff, and it's exactly why Goleman is such a strong advocate for these emotional literacy programs. If we can equip kids with those essential skills early on, we're giving them a huge advantage in life.
Totally. It's like setting them up for success, not just in school, but in all areas of life.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond individual success, too. It's about creating a more compassionate, equitable, thriving society as a whole.
So it's a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. When we nurture emotional intelligence in children, we're basically creating a ripple effect. It spreads outwards, impacting their families, communities, and ultimately the world around them.
I love that imagery. It makes you think, though, if we're not explicitly teaching these crucial life skills in schools, where are kids supposed to learn them? Are we just hoping they'll pick them up through osmosis or something?
Right. That's the question, isn't it? And sadly, for a lot of kids, that's exactly what's happening.
And that doesn't seem fair.
It's not. Some kids are lucky enough to have families and communities that really value and prioritize emotional intelligence, but a lot don't.
And that's where these emotional literacy programs can be so impactful,
Exactly. They can fill those gaps and help level the playing field.
giving every child, regardless of their background, the chance to develop their full emotional potential.
It's all about empowering them to become more resilient, more empathetic, more self-aware, so they can handle whatever life throws at them.
So powerful. You brought up a really important point earlier. If we truly believe that emotional literacy is like the key to a fulfilling and meaningful life,
Yeah.
what are we doing to actually support it and advocate for it in our communities?
That's the challenge. It's not enough to just agree that it's important. We have to take action.
So what can our listeners do? What are some concrete steps they can take to make a difference?
Well, first things first, educate yourself. Dig into the resources we've talked about today. Check out organizations like KCEL. Stay informed about the latest research in the field.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And once you've got that knowledge, become an advocate. Talk to your kids' teachers, engage with your local school board, spread the word about the importance of emotional literacy.
Even just starting conversations can plant seeds and inspire action.
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect,
Yeah.
Small actions can lead to big changes.
Love that.
Yeah.
And we can also lead by example, right?
Absolutely. Kids are always watching us. They learn by observing how we handle our own emotions.
So be the change you want to see.
Exactly. We don't have to wait for some big systemic shift. We can start creating those pockets of emotional literacy right now in our own homes, schools, and communities.
Imagine the possibilities. If more and more people start to embrace this idea, we can really create a world where emotional intelligence is valued and nurtured in every child.
It's a beautiful vision, and I truly believe it's possible.
I do too. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of emotional intelligence. It's been an incredible journey.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
And for all our listeners out there, remember, the journey of emotional growth is ongoing. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in the power of emotional intelligence to transform lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, keep diving.